Okay, everyone. So, welcome back again, and let us continue with the Ajita Sutta that we were looking at yesterday, and see what happens next. But first of all, thanks to the caretakers for looking after the power supply. It's a bit problematic. They're doing some big upgrades in the local area, kind of changing out all the power poles and that sort of stuff. So there's lots of outages these days because of that. So it's kind of hard to keep it all going. But they're doing trying very hard to run around to make this work for us. That's great. So thanks so much to the caretakers. So the Ajita Sutta. Yesterday we had a look at the first verse, and we will now carry on. And we're now getting into some more practical issues about how to use mindfulness and wisdom, specifically to stop what they call the streams. Let's just have a quick look at this verse again before we carry on. So this next verse goes as follows. The streams flow everywhere, said Venerable Ajita. What is there to block them? Tell me their restraint. By what are the streams stopped? The world streams, replied the Buddha, are blocked by mindfulness. Thus I tell you the restraint of the streams. They are stopped by wisdom. So here we have, first of all, this idea of streams. Streams in the Dhamma. Sota is usually the word for a stream. Like a sotapanna is one who is a stream enterer, who enters a stream. But this is not what is meant by stream here, because the stream of a stream entry is like entering the stream of the Dhamma on the way to Nibbana. There's kind of two streams in the world. One is the worldly stream that takes you to kind of a bad destination, the streams of craving, the streams of desire for existence, and these sort of things, streams that depend on defilements. And then there's the stream of the Dhamma, which is kind of takes you to Nibbana. So two kind of opposite streams, in a sense, is what we're dealing with here. So the stream here is especially the stream of craving, and the stream which is the desire for existence. The eternal moving on the mind, streaming out into the world, streaming into the future, going on and on and on without any kind of stopping point, always moving on to something else. This is the idea of stream of craving. Never really being satisfied, always being restless, always being agitated, never finding any real satisfaction. And this is the problem with the realm of craving, or the realm of the sensual realm, is that there isn't any real satisfaction in that realm. There is no point at which you feel, okay, now I have all the sensual pleasures I want, and you are kind of, that's kind of fine, and then you're okay. It doesn't work like that. There was an interesting post, I can't remember where I read this, maybe I read this somewhere, that this was Elon Musk, and he said how much dukkha he had in his life. He is the wealthiest person in the world. I think apparently the latest account, something like $800 billion, something like that is, and he still kind of, says that life is kind of so much suffering, so many problems. He obviously isn't satisfied, and so it's not a matter of wealth or a matter of anything like that. This is the inherent to the nature of the five senses, that realm is never going to be satisfactory. And the reason is because there is something inside of us that feels incomplete. There's some hole, if you like, inside of us. There's some sense of incompletion, and then that incompleteness cannot be filled by external things, by things from the outside. It's like a band-aid. It's a temporary thing. You have a nice meal and you temporarily feel kind of nice. But soon enough, that itch comes back again. And that itch, that psychological hole or gap inside of us can only really be filled by developing the mind directly. That's how that internal itch can be kind of overcome once and for all. So the streams in the world, that is endless moving on, the endless kind of carrying on, First of all, to try to satisfy the insatiable sensuality, but also to satisfy our desire for existence. And then moving on from realm to realm, from life to life, trying to find some place where maybe we can be satisfied. This desire to exist is part of that problem as well. In the Suttas, they talk about the Vijnana Sutta. The Vijnana Sutta is the stream of consciousness, and this is kind of what moves on from life to life. This is one of the questions last night. How is it that things can carry on without a self? And this is the stream of consciousness. It is not a stream that is permanent or has a kind of, is self-same or anything like that in any way. It is a changeable thing that is always moving and changing and transmuting from one thing to another. But nevertheless, that desire to exist kind of lies behind it and then moves it onward and carries on. This restless moving on, forever restless, without any real purpose, without really knowing where it is going, just restlessly moving on in the world. It's kind of, when you think about it, it's really kind of unsatisfactory. Yeah, it's really sort of terrible, this eternally restless moving on. And of course the point is, after a while, you start to understand that I need to find an alternative to this. I don't want to carry on like this. If the Buddha is right that this is how it is from life to life, just more of the same as we have now, do you really want to carry on in the same way as you're doing already, again and again and again? It just sounds, after a while, it sounds quite awful. And so you want to kind of try to stop these streams. And this is what this thing is about, stopping this movement, this restlessness, this pointlessness, aimlessness, goallessness. There is no purpose to all of this. And so we want to find an alternative. And here the Buddha says, well, there are two ways of dealing with these streams. And one of them is mindfulness, and the other one is wisdom. So they are, if you like, blocked, first of all, or restrained by mindfulness, kind of an initial block, a temporary block, or a temporary restraint. And then finally, they are stopped by wisdom. This is kind of the movement here, how the path works on these things. So how does this work? Well, the way this works is that mindfulness is what allows you to change course. Mindfulness is the awareness that tells you what is going on, and so it gives an alternative, a new possibility of doing things in a different way. Without mindfulness, it means you're not really aware of what is happening. You're just allowing the mind to run around in its own way. But when you have mindfulness, it means that at least you are aware of what is happening, and that gives you this possibility to change course. And that is really the purpose of mindfulness in the suttas, on the path in this particular case. So we can have a kind of a restraint, which is what they call it here. And this is an important point, that mindfulness is not just for the sake of itself. Mindfulness is not just, it's good to be mindful because mindfulness is good. Very often we have this idea in Buddhism that, just be mindful in daily life. Mindful when you do whatever it is that you're doing. But that is not really sufficient just to be mindful, because you can be mindful of all kinds of things, and some of these things we shouldn't really be satisfied with. We should do something about them. Mindfulness should have a larger purpose, and the larger purpose is precisely this, to restrain ourselves, to hold back when the mind is going in the wrong direction, especially when you see things like negative mind states like ill will and anger and irritation arising in the mind, and you want to take an alternative course. You want to move in a different direction. You don't just want to be mindful of the anger. Anger. That's not the point. The point here is to overcome these things. These are problematic mental qualities that we shouldn't really have. And that's why the idea here is you are mindful, and then you have the knowledge of that what is right and what is wrong, what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, and then you have a way of overcoming those unwholesome things. There's many things coming together here around the idea of mindfulness. It's not just about being mindful, it's about using the mindfulness in a skillful way. There's a nice little sutta which explains this quite nicely, Manibaddha Sutta. This is in the Yakka Samyutta. And yakkas are, it sounds a bit like yucky, which it can be a bit yucky, the yakkas, but the yakkas are like these powerful beings. Yeah, they're kind of part of the Deva Loka, the lowest realm of the Devas, and they're often very powerful, and they can hurt human beings if they want to, but because of their power. But some of them are Buddhists, some are not Buddhists. I don't know if you believe that or not, if the yakkas can be Buddhists, but they can according to the suttas. Some yakkas are Buddhists, some are anti-Buddhists, some are probably Christian, some are maybe Muslim, some are probably atheist. Yeah, they're just like human beings basically. A little bit glorified. I don't know if you heard, some of you may not have heard this story, but we had a monk coming to Bodhinyana Monastery many years ago, and he said that when you go to the heavenly realms, you have to go to the right corner of the heavenly realm, because there is the Christian corner of the heavenly realm, there's the Muslim corner, the Buddhist corner. So when you get reborn in the heavenly realm, which hopefully many of you will, right? Go to the Buddhist corner, yeah, so you can hang out with the Buddhists, yeah, and you can kind of enjoy the Dhamma, and you can hear the suttas again. Maybe they tell you the Ajita Sutta. Someone is doing the Parayana in the heavenly realm. Yeah, if this lady, Nandamata, was maybe, she probably wasn't, she was actually beyond that, but yeah, so you go there and then you hear, wow, I've heard that Ajita Sutta before. Jhana Grove, 2026, yeah, that was a good year. And so you kind of, it comes back to you again. So, and I think that's kind of makes sense, that heavenly realm should be like that, yeah, because the human realm is like that. You had the Buddhist corner is here, yeah, or the BSWA or whatever. We group according to the people or the beings that we are like. So of course the heavenly realm is going to be just like that, because they are beings just like us, yeah, with the same kind of idea, same way of thinking. That's kind of the way it has to be. And so the idea, the Manibaddha Sutta, with this yakka called Manibaddha, he goes to the Buddha and he says that mindfulness is always good. Can't remember exactly how it goes, I haven't read it for a long time, but mindfulness is always good. Through mindfulness, you overcome ill will. And the Buddha replies, mindfulness is always good, but you don't overcome ill will through mindfulness. Through metta, you don't overcome ill will through metta. It is that you overcome ill will. Yeah, so mindfulness is always good, but it's not enough. You need something more, and specifically to overcome ill will and negativity, irritation, you need to practice metta, yeah, friendliness, loving kindness, this positive goodwill, if you like. This is part of what this is about. And so don't just be mindful in daily life. Yeah? It's easy just to be mindful. There's a purpose behind this. Have a particular kind of mindfulness. And the mindfulness is to understand whether what you are doing right now is appropriate or not. What you're thinking right now is appropriate or not. That is what the purpose of mindfulness is. Then you can readjust your conduct. Think differently. Okay, what did the Buddha say about thinking in the right way? Okay, don't be angry. Okay, so what do I need to do now? And then you change your way of practice and your outlook through that reflection. So when we talk about mindfulness, it has two distinct meanings that brings these various qualities together. The root meaning of the word mindfulness, sati in Pali, not mindfulness, but sati in Pali, smriti in Sanskrit. And this is a word that existed in India before Buddhism. If you read the ancient Vedas, you see this word smriti, yeah, and it meant memory. That is the main meaning of the word sati. These days it is often used to kind of just mean awareness, yeah, non-judgmental awareness. It's kind of one of the standard ways that is defined. But actually, that is not really how it is used in the suttas. Sati is not non-judgmental awareness. On the contrary, the awareness part is correct, but it also implies a judgment about what is good and what is bad. And that judgment comes from the memory of what is happening here. Yeah, the memory of the teachings, the memory of what you're supposed to be doing here. So memory is a very important part of the idea of sati. And so the way that it is defined in the suttas is that you have the ability to remember what was said and done a long time ago, but in the context of the meditation or the practice of the path, it's the memory of the instructions of the Buddha, the memory of what the Noble Eightfold Path is about, the memory of how to overcome the negative qualities. That is the memory here. So you do whatever you're doing here, and then you know whether you're heading in the right direction or not. That is the memory of these things. So this is how memory comes together with the awareness of what is happening here. And this is when we talk about sati sampajanya, that is a large part what this is about. Sati, the mindfulness, sampajanya, which is the wisdom, which is the understanding of the teaching, related to the word panya, which is wisdom. These things kind of coming together in this way. And then you have the right qualities to really use mindfulness properly. And then you need the technique. You need some kind of way of dealing with the problems. So when the streams of the world, when they are kind of leading you astray, and you're getting upset about things, and you're getting concerned about what is, you're getting negative or aversion towards things in the world, you can see that happening in your mind. Then you need, okay, what do I do next? I can't allow this to go into ill will or anger or whatever, so what do I do with this thing? And this is where you also find good explanation in the suttas how to deal with ill will. And some of the ways of dealing with ill will, they are actually very simple but very powerful and very, very useful. And I'll just go into that maybe very briefly now, because this is maybe a good place to do that. We're talking about how to stop the streams of the world. And so maybe the most obvious stream to overcome, sensuality can be a bit profound, but ill will is relatively easy to overcome. This is what they say in the suttas anyway. I don't know if you agree with that. That's what it says in the suttas. Quite easy to overcome, but very blameworthy. Ill will is the most blameworthy thing. Sensuality, not as blameworthy, right? So that's why we should deal with the things that are most blameworthy and the easiest to overcome. Ill will and anger is the most easiest thing to overcome, and also very blameworthy. Delusion is very blameworthy, but hard to overcome. So delusion is very profound and very deeply embedded in the human psyche, if you wish. So how can you overcome ill will? And usually ill will, sometimes it is about we are frustrated about the world, but very often it relates to other human beings. We get upset with other people. And so the way then is how we think about other people is really at the foundation for how to overcome ill will. So how do we think about other people? And very often the reason why we get upset with others is because we feel badly treated by others. They are speaking to us in the wrong way, acting towards us in the wrong way. And it's very personal. We always make it very personal. It's like them against us, then you against me. You are hurting me, me. It's very kind of self-oriented. And that is where we go wrong. As long as you think that the other person does this towards you, this is about me. As long as it is personal, it is very hard to let go of. But remember that other people's actions towards you, it is never personal. It is never really about you. And the moment you understand that it is not about you, it is far easier to let go of. If someone says something to you that is bad, or they shout at you, or they say something nasty or whatever, you get really upset. But if you see someone does the same thing on TV, or you see someone else doing it to someone else, it's far less of a problem, right? You may not like it may not be nice, but it's something that you can dismiss quite easily because it's not happening to you. It's because it is personal. That is why we are concerned about this. But remember it is never personal. It is not about you. If someone treats you badly, it is about them. It is their conditioning that is coming out. It is coming out in your presence, and that's kind of unfortunate, but it's not really anything to do with you. Their conditioning is coming out because of their background, because of the way they were brought up, because of their parents, because of schooling, because of friends, because of their past lives, because of their own silliness in the past. All of these things coming together, conspiring against them, and then given a certain situation, allows those defilements to then come out and then express themselves in your presence. But it's not about you, it's about the other person. And the moment you understand that it's not about you, but it's about the other person, at that moment, instead of being self-centered and thinking, wow, they're doing it against me. There's all this me business. Yeah, they can see how troublesome this ego is. Yeah, the ego is really at the root of all of this. The moment you understand it's not about you, but about them, instead of kind of being so self-focused, you can start to see the other person instead. And you start to see that they are trapped by that conditioning. If they treat you badly, it's terrible. Yeah, all of you here, you are good people. They don't have any right. Why should they treat you badly? They should treat you with a sense of respect, a sense of care, a sense of understanding that they are in the presence of someone who is living well. They should treat you well rather than badly. The problem is not with you, it's clearly with the other person. And when you understand that they are trapped in something, in conditioning that forces them, that compels them to act badly in this way, in the presence of a good person. People were angry with the Buddha, for goodness sake. People get angry with people like Ajahn Brahmali. People get angry with all sorts of good people. It's nothing to do with the person who is getting angry at, but with the person who is getting angry. They are the one who have a problem. And then when the deeper you go into understanding this other person, you realize actually they probably want to be kind. I think everyone in the world ultimately wants to be kind. Would you like to be kind? I would like to be kind all the time if I could. Yeah, why wouldn't I want to be kind all the time? Why wouldn't I want to treat people with respect and in the right way all the time? But am I able to do that? Not fully. I think I'm getting pretty good at it, but still not fully. Yeah, sometimes the conditioning is so strong. It conspires against me and conspires against what I know I should be doing, and I just can't help myself. And something comes out of the mouth, and then it's too late. You can't put it back in again. Yeah, it's come out, it's too late. And so this is how we should then look at other people. And then the moment you do that, you understand that deep down they want to be kind, but they can't help themselves. You understand that they are in the grip of conditioning that is much greater than themselves. And then you can start to have compassion for that person. They are unable to live according to their own ideals, according to the ideals of the Dhamma, according to the ideals that will make them happy. They are causing suffering for themselves without really being able to stop it. That is how compassion can arise. And so you can see here how that mindfulness, when done in the right way, when done in combination with understanding what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, and having a fairly clear idea of how to change the way you are thinking, how these three things come together in this way and enables you to move in a different direction. The more you start thinking like this, thinking and understanding that it is not about you, it is about the other person, the more you can think like this, understanding that they are trapped in the conditioning. This is what non-self means in practice. In practice, non-self means that instead of we expressing something that we want to do, which is how most of the world thinks about this, this is the blessing of being a Buddhist. We are not trapped in this idea of a self or a soul that expresses my personal individuality, and whenever you do something you are fully responsible because it's your soul, it is your evil self that does evil actions. And this is kind of the trap that I think a lot of people who believe in the kind of self within, the real self, that's what they fall into. Because then, of course, you are responsible if it is your self that is doing this. But if that self is an illusion, and you are just a conditioned product of all kind of phenomena in the world, you start to realize that we are not really responsible in the way that we thought. There is still a responsibility in the sense that you have to experience the results of your actions. But there's not responsibility in the sense that you can do whatever you want and you have a freedom of will to always decide what is right and what is wrong. It doesn't work like that. And it is beautiful because it allows us to have compassion. It allows us not to be judgmental. It allows us to do all of these things in a very different way in the Dhamma compared to most of the world. Most of the world, they want retribution. Most of the world say, yeah, get them in prison. Yeah, they are bad and they should stay there for a long time. And we want to have our own back on these people. That is not the Buddhist way of thinking. Sure, put people away for a while because they are dangerous. But then rehabilitate them. Understand that conditioning is what really matters. And then they can be brought back and become good members of society again later on. So this is the idea of mindfulness. Mindfulness gives you a sense of power within. Mindfulness in the Sutta is called the sati adipateya. Adipateya means like you become like the lord of yourself. Lord means someone who controls. You become in charge of yourself. If your mindfulness is strong, you feel like you are in charge instead of the defilements being in charge or other people being in charge or whatever. You are in charge of yourself. You can choose your reactions. You know before you react that this is what is happening now, and then you can change course. Sati adipateya is the word used in the suttas. You are controlled through mindfulness. This is what this is about. Mindfulness is a very powerful thing. The stronger that mindfulness is, the more you feel in charge of your life. If you have no mindfulness, you feel that you are being controlled by external things. And this is what is going on. So build up that mindfulness in this particular way. Use it skillfully. And as you do that, you're cutting off the streams in the world. So the most important stream, and the one that I would suggest that you emphasize the most, is ill will, because it is such a detrimental force in our life. So many things in the world, like wars and what have you, are, I think, often grounded in ill will. Ill will is often the root cause, being angry with other nations or being whatever, and such a destructive force. And you will notice that if you become a person with less ill will, your life becomes so much better. One of the great benefits of having ill will is that your relationships with other people become so much more beautiful. People start to become drawn towards you. You are never going to be lonely again in your whole life if you have no ill will. In fact, you get too many friends. You have to tell friends, please, leave me alone. Let me go back into my cave. That's what Ajahn Brahm has to say to people all the time. Because Ajahn Brahm is so cuddly, everyone wants to be with him these days. And this is, so that's kind of a nice problem to have, right? It's a different kind of problem. You're certainly not going to feel lonely. The sense of metta that you have anyway means that you never feel lonely, because metta fills that hole inside of you that association with others normally fills. You want to be associated with others because you need that kind of sense of friendship or whatever. But if you have metta, that friendship is already within you. You already feel connected to the whole world through that metta, because you have that sense of love, if you like, friendliness towards everyone. So it's not just anger, however. It is also, if you want to go deeper into the idea of mindfulness, it's also about sensuality. Overcoming this desire for sensuality, stopping that a little bit. And the way to do that is similar to the way to overcoming anger. You do that through wisdom, understanding the nature of things. Don't force yourself too much. If you force yourself too much to overcome, sensuality, it's going to be painful. And your willpower is very limited. Human willpower is very weak, and before you know it, it's going to be gone. It's weak and it's painful at the same time. So instead, be wise about it. And one of the great things about being a meditator, and hopefully you get some nice meditation, you can feel that the energy in this room, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, it varies a little bit, but sometimes you feel you get into nice energy when everyone is meditating together. It's kind of peaceful. There's a sort of power to that meditation together when everyone comes together in the right kind of way. And then when you start to feel that, you start to see the opposite of sensuality. Why sensuality is so problematic? Because it is restless, because it's the opposite of peace, the opposite of this beautiful tranquility that you find in meditation practice. And the deeper your meditation goes, the more insight and understanding you get into the problem of the sensual world, why it is so problematic, how it never allows you that sense of freedom from the affliction of moving, always being kind of propelled onwards, always restless, always having to do something. So remember that, contemplate the sensual world a little bit, understand that there is so much suffering in that five-sense world. It's so problematic. You cannot hold on to anything in that world. This is one of the main reasons why we contemplate the idea of impermanence. The primary impermanence, the number one impermanence, is the impermanence in that five-sense world, how nothing can really be held on to, how things are always changing. Your dearest possessions, the dearest things that you have in this life, all your relationships is also in that five-sense world. All of that is just so unstable and so uncertain. At the end of the day, you're going to have to give it all up. However, if you develop something within yourself, you develop your mind, you develop an inner peace, an inner joy, the piti, the sukha, all of these things. That is a resource that you can access at any time. It does not depend on the world outside. Remember what the Buddha talks about just before he's about to pass away, to be resilient, to find a refuge within yourself. Atta sadhana. Atta sadhana means yourself as a refuge. Dhamma sadhana. The Dhamma as a refuge. That refuge is the meditation. That refuge is the ability to find peace and meaning and happiness and all of these things within yourself. It's a beautiful thing if you can do that. It's very powerful and incredibly helpful. It's almost the opposite of the world outside. Of course, you cannot control the world outside, but the world within, even though you cannot control it at the end of the day, at least you can develop it. And you can, when you develop it enough, have access to these qualities whenever you need a refuge, whenever you need to pull back from the world. And that is the power. That is the purpose, a large part of the purpose of the spiritual path. It's something very beautiful about that, being able to withdraw from the world which is so troubled. It's kind of interesting, you see everyone in the world being so concerned about the things in the world, and there's a lot to be concerned about. When you look at the world. Sure, I can understand why people feel a bit despairing, why they may feel a bit sad, why they may feel even depressed sometimes when they see what's happening in the world. If that is your refuge, it is no refuge at all. How can you take refuge in the war? How can you take refuge in climate change? How can you take refuge in all the bad things that are happening around us? You can't. You have to let it go. You have to find it somewhere else. This is the purpose of the Dhamma. The Dhamma has the solution to all of these things. Isn't that kind of amazing? And this is what we're doing. We're building up that solution right here on this retreat. The solution to all the problems in the world are found within us. Whenever you sit down, whenever you enjoy your meditation to a certain extent, you are moving towards that solution to all the problems in the world. There is a solution. It's just found in a very different place from what most people think. It is not found in the world outside. You can kind of try to overcome the wars and the problems in the world forever, and you will never overcome it. It may go in waves. There will be times when things are better and then worse again or whatever, but there's no final solution. And the reason why there is no final solution is because of the defilement of human beings. Yeah, the defilement of human beings will always be there, because that is why we were reborn as human beings in the first place, because we have those defilements. And so the human realm comes with these problems. It is impossible for the human realm not to have these problems. It has to be there. It's a different way of thinking about the world, and it makes the whole world seem a bit yucky, and it makes you far more interested in the spiritual path as a consequence. So let go of that five-sense world a little bit. Understand the problem. Come to the meditation. When you let go of that world, it allows your meditation to go deeper. Your mindfulness becomes more strong. And then when you do that, then you can let go of the world a little bit more. And the two things kind of build up together. The letting go on the one hand, and the building up of the meditation and the spiritual path on the other. So this is what mindfulness really is about. This is how we block the streams of the world. The final blockage is the blocking of existence, the desire for existence, the bhava tanha. There's many ways in which these things are, kind of many different words that are used. We had yesterday we talked about the oga, the flood. There's the asava, which is also like a flood or a streaming of things. There's tanha, craving, and they're used in very similar ways in the suttas. Slightly different metaphors for what is happening in our lives. But one of them is the flow of existence. Yeah, and even that, after a while, you start to see the danger. And this, of course, is where the idea of rebirth is so powerful. Understanding what this really entails, the moving on, doing the same thing again and again and again, sometimes going up and rejoicing in a very nice rebirth, other times not so nice rebirth, like kangaroo rebirth or something like that. The kangaroos may look cute, but their life is not so great, even though they look cute to us, but from the inner point of view, within the kangaroo, it doesn't look so nice. So then we also start to move towards this non-flowing on of existence, and we can use that as well as a reminder. But the most important thing is to deal with ill will and anger, then a little bit with sensuality if you can, and the very deep one is the problem of existence itself, the moving on of things from existence, this eternal cycle of birth and death. So they are blocked by mindfulness. It's not really it's like a temporary block, a temporary restraint. They may not even be fully blocked, but the kind of partial restraint. It comes in various degrees. But then eventually these flows are stopped by wisdom. Wisdom is when you see deeply the problem of these things, when you really understand why these things are so problematic. And one of the things that you see is precisely that ill will and desire, sensual desire, are always this movement of the mind. And that movement of the mind is inherently painful. This is when you kind of attain a deep state of samadhi and the mind is completely peaceful. You know for the first time in your life why sensuality is fundamentally dukkha, suffering, because the perfect peace of the mind is far preferable to the movement of the mind. Sensuality is always about movement, and for that reason it is always comes with a degree of pain. Hard to see that. You go back, you have some nice food, Norlia's marvelous food cooking over there, and all the wonderful people who come bringing nice food here is wonderful thing that people do. But ultimately you understand the limits of these things, and then you can kind of start to give it up completely. The kind of wisdom is the wisdom when you understand non-self, the insight into the Four Noble Truths, and you understand that things are really out of control as well. You understand that actually I can't really have the sensuality when I want anyway. And if I can't have it whenever I want, I can't control it. It's kind of a waste of time. The right way is to give up. The right way is to let go. And when you let go, the natural inclination of the mind of a stream winner is samadhi. And so you just enjoy samadhi instead, which is where the real happiness is to be found. So this is what wisdom does to you. Wisdom allows you to understand where happiness is and where suffering is found. And you understand that sensuality, the movement of the mind, is a kind of suffering. And so you don't go there anymore. So wisdom stops it. There is no more flowing of the mind when you stop things. Ultimately, you understand the problem of rebirth. You understand that this moving on in samsaric existence is itself inherently problematic. And so you have no desire even for rebirth, no desire for moving on. That's kind of it's kind of interesting. You hear very often that, I don't know what your feeling about rebirth is, kind of a bit ambivalent maybe. I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people think that rebirth is a good thing. I can carry on. I don't want to just stop living. Rebirth is good. That's what many people probably like, the idea of rebirth. And a lot of people will say, you Buddhists, you just want to be reborn because, you don't want to face the reality of things coming to an end when you die. And there is some truth to that. There's some truth to the fact that people want to be reborn because the idea of ending of existence sounds much worse. And so you can see what is going on there. So we have a kind of an ambivalent thing with this. On the one hand, maybe I should get reborn. Maybe not. Maybe the Buddha is right. And it's kind of hard to see this fully. Really appreciating the ending of rebirth can be very difficult. Some people do that. Some people don't want to be reborn at all. But it's not that common. And so you have to kind of gradually think about this and allow this thing to mature within you, understanding what is really going on. And as you start to understand that, you can kind of come closer to ending this particular flow of the mind as well. So no more flowing on into the world. Wisdom stopping these things. So this is how things are blocked. How the mindfulness blocks the streams of the world. It's such a beautiful sutta, Ajita's questions. I don't know why we're doing 16 questions. I think Venerable Karunika, she said to me, no, we only need to do one sutta, there's no need to do all 16. And she's probably right. I don't know why we're doing 16. We should do one for the whole retreat.
We can change our mind now.
We can change our mind now. I think now I'm done the most important parts of this sutta already. So I think now if we change our mind now, it may not work out. Now we get Venerable Ajita again. His next verse. He says, that wisdom and mindfulness, said Venerable Ajita, and that which is name and form, dear sir, when asked, please tell me, where do they come to an end? This question you have asked, Ajita, where do name and form come to an end without remainder, I shall answer you. With the cessation of consciousness, it is there that they come to an end. So I'm not going to say too much about this, because this is where it gets really profound. And it's kind of a strange question, that wisdom and mindfulness. Where does wisdom and mindfulness come to an end? Isn't that kind of a strange question to ask? We always want to be more mindful, we want to be wiser, so why on earth are they even asking about this? It's kind of strange. And to be able to appreciate what that question is about, it is a really, really profound question. I don't know what Ajita thought he was asking, because he was a Brahmin. He didn't really know about the Dhammas. I'm not sure what he thought he was asking about. I can only guess. So maybe he thought that mindfulness here, sati, is like memory. So where do all these memories coming to an end? All these memories always haranguing me and harassing me. I don't want to remember all this stuff anymore. Please tell me, where do the memories come to an end? I want to get rid of these memories. Maybe that's what he's thinking here. From our point of view, mindfulness being awareness and being ability to control our mind, it seems useful. But even from a Buddhist point of view, ultimately, for the highest kind of realization, we too want mindfulness to come to an end. But not just memory, but the very idea of awareness itself. All of that ceasing is part of the Buddhist path. And that is where it becomes very profound. That is where it is related to this idea of the ending of existence, ending of the cycle of rebirth. So you can see here that there is like the Ajita's way of understanding what is going on, and then there's the Buddha's way here. And the Buddha has to correct him a little bit, because he probably doesn't really understand what he's asking here. The question has far deeper implications than Ajita is really aware of. Wisdom. What do you mean by wisdom coming to an end? What does Ajita mean by that? And again, he probably means a more kind of superficial kind of wisdom. A wisdom that understands in a more kind of ordinary way, that understands maybe the dangers of the sensual world. Maybe that's what he means, or maybe understands the dangers of rebirth. But he probably has a more limited idea of wisdom. But in either case, wisdom too has to come to an end if everything else comes to an end. Because wisdom is only part of our existence. Once you don't get reborn, once you don't go any further, then wisdom itself also has to stop, because wisdom is part of kind of our psychology. That's where wisdom resides in our psychology, or where it doesn't reside, depending on who you are. It depends. It's part of our mental makeup, if you like. Anyway, and then he asks, where does name and form end? And this is what the Buddha answers. He only answers. You will notice he doesn't really say anything about wisdom and mindfulness, probably because he reckons Ajita doesn't really understand what he's talking about. So he talks about name and form instead. And name and form is this weird thing in the Dhamma. You may wonder, what is that all about? Name and form. It's kind of strange, isn't it? The Buddhists may talk about name and form. Why are we talking about name and form? What has that got to do with it? Usually we talk about the 5 khandhas, the 5 aspects of personal existence. We talk maybe about the 6 sense spaces, the 6 senses that we have. But name and form, it's kind of weird. Name? What has that got to do with it? Brahmali? What on earth has that got to do with it? The name. And so that's interesting, because when you have these weird expressions in the suttas, there's always a reason for that. And so you have to understand the kind of broader context. And here, the broader context becomes kind of clear, because the question is from the Brahmins. The Brahmins are using this idea. Nama rupa is the Pali for name and form. And then the Buddha uses the same Brahmanical word later on in his own teachings. And the only teachings in the Dhamma you really find name and form is independent origination. Vijnana paccaya nama rupa paccaya salayatana. So the consciousness conditions name and form conditions the 6 sense spaces. And so this is the kind of the dependent origination sequence. But it comes from the Brahmanical teachings. And in the Brahmanical teachings, name and forms means individuality. Who are we? We are name and appearance. Form is just appearance. Form is shape. We recognize each other by what we look like. We see, okay, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, and then we have a name given to that person. And this is how we create individuals. How we not create them, how we differentiate individuals. And in the Brahmanical teachings, the way that individuals are created, it starts with the creator of the universe. Prajapati creates other human beings. There's just a mass of ignorance, a mass of nothing. And then Prajapati kind of takes a lump of that mass of nothing, puts it there, makes a shape and gives it a name. And in this way creates a human being. It individuates, it takes from the mass of unindividuated, uniform background, it creates something that has a name and shape, and that then becomes a human being. And then the Buddha uses this idea of individuation and brings it into dependent origination, and saying that consciousness depends on that individuation, it depends on name and form. Only individuals have consciousness. And this is very profound, because remember, according to Brahmanism, the idea is that there is something called universal consciousness. Brahman is the universal consciousness that includes everything else. The Buddha says, no, there is no universal consciousness. All consciousness is tied to individuals, tied to name and form. It is individuated. Consciousness depends on name and form. Name and form depends on consciousness. Yeah? So this is the idea. So when Ajita asks about the cessation of name and form, he's asking about the cessation of individuality, the merging back with universal consciousness, with Brahman. This is the highest ideal in Brahmanism. Yeah, Advaita Vedanta, the modern kind of form of Hinduism, which has the deepest sort of meditation, is about the absorption of the individual into universal consciousness. It is a bit like the deeper your meditation is, the more it feels like you become one with everything. Yeah, and this is kind of where they get that idea from, because they also had deep meditation. And they say, wow, these deep meditations, all boundaries of the ego are dissolved. I'm one with the universe. This is the ultimate ground of all existence, the universal consciousness, the Brahman, the eternal truth, reality itself, standing firm like a mountain peak. This is what it says in the Suttas. I'm not making it up. You may think I'm just making random things up. This is actually from the Suttas. Yeah? Standing firm like a mountain peak. The Brahmajala Sutta, expressing what it is like to be Brahman. So this is where they get that idea from. And it's a very common idea in human society around the whole world. This idea of one kind of larger reality, call it God, universal consciousness, the ground of all being. So this is what he is asking about. When the cessation of name and form, the individual ceases, and you go back to that universal consciousness, back to God, back to the larger reality. And it's a very beautiful idea. Yeah, because no longer are you separated. Yeah, now you are love, you are unity, you are unseparated. Your ego, the boundaries are all gone. All you experience is like this endless bliss. It's a very powerful, intoxicating idea, and you can see why people would go for that. Of course they go for that. But then comes the Buddha and says, sorry, it's not like that. Yeah, unfortunately, you may have that experience, but it only lasts for a while, and it's gone again. Yeah, the individuation that you're asking for here, no, it is not that when you dissolve name and form, then you go back to universal consciousness. No, it is only with this ending of consciousness that name and form ends. It's a completely new way of understanding things. Ajita is asking for the end of individuation. The Buddha is asking for the ending and pointing out the ending of all phenomena. That is much more profound, much, much deeper again. And most people don't want that. Most people think that the universal consciousness is far better. But actually, what the Buddha is pointing to is far superior to universal consciousness. It is more peaceful. It is more profound. It is a higher kind of happiness, if you understand what is going on. And so the Buddha is pointing to something more profound. And anyway, that universal consciousness says the Buddha doesn't exist anyway. So even if it is nice, you can't have it. So not much point in going for it. And so this is what is happening here. Only with the ending of consciousness does all of this thing really fall into place. So this is what this is about. I'm telling you, this is really profound. And this is how you can see the clash, the difference between the Brahmanical society and Buddhism, and how Buddhism changes everything. It looks at the world in an entirely new way. Yeah, now you kind of can see the chasm between what happened before Buddhism and what came after. Okay, so let's kind of have a quick look at the very last verse. Then now he is asking about the practice, the very last part here, the fourth noble truth, if you like. Those who have comprehended the teaching, the many kinds of trainees here, when asked by me about their conduct, or if you like, their practice, dear sir, please declare it. So what he is asking about here, from the Buddha's point of view, those who have comprehended the teaching, from a Buddhist point of view, that means the Sekas, the Aryas, the noble ones. They are the ones who have comprehended the teachings. They are the many kinds of trainees. They are training. You only start training fully once you become a noble one, because then you have internalized the path, the Dhamma has become internalized. So those who are really training properly, what is their conduct? How do they live? How do they practice? The Pali word is Irya or Iryapata, means like a way of life or the way of living, your practice, how you are, conduct in a very broad sense. And the Buddha replies, not greedy, or not desiring for sensual pleasures. Why? Because you have understood through wisdom the limitations of sensual pleasures. You can still enjoy them. And in one way, the noble ones enjoy sensual pleasures more than ordinary people, precisely because they don't have that craving. That's kind of the weird thing. But they're not greedy for them. They don't desire them because they know a deeper happiness. Then their minds will be unclouded. This is kind of another very interesting point. As long as you have sensuality, as long as you have this attachment to the sensual world and desires in the sensual world, your mind will not be clear. Your mind will be confused. Your mind will be restless. It will be agitated. You will have tiredness and lethargy quite easily. All of these kind of minor defilements, they come about largely because of our attachment to sensual things. That's why they come about. So by giving up sensual pleasures, you are unclouding the mind. You're starting to get clarity. Mindfulness is finally allowed to become strong. The tiredness and the sloth and all of this lethargy, that is being banished together with the restlessness and the agitation. And so you can see again how problematic these things are. They cause all of these negative things. You cannot see clearly what is going on. You are biased because of those sensual pleasures. All kind of problems arise because of that. And then they are skilled in all things. The Aryans are skilled in all things. This means that you are skilled. Things here are Dhamma. Dhamma can mean teachings. You are skilled in all the teachings. You understand what the Buddha taught. But you're also skilled in all kind of qualities as well. You understand how to acquire good qualities. You understand where the good qualities are. You know that all you have to do is sit down and wait, and then the good qualities of the mind just arise by themselves. This is the power of mindfulness. You know how to reach these good qualities. You're skilled in all things. You understand impermanence. You understand non-self. You understand how to use these profound ideas to aid yourself on the path and how to move forward. You're skilled in all things. Everything that has to do with Dhamma, you are skilled in. And when you do, then you wander mindfully. Mindfully, you keep the Dhamma teachings at the back of your mind. You have that right view. You bring that right view with you. And because you are mindful, it is available to you whenever you need it. So you never really fall for those dangers on the path. The snakes that you're not supposed to step on, you don't step on those snakes anymore. And this is kind of the idea here. So that is the Ajita Sutta in brief. But already, really, I don't know, I find it really inspiring when you understand what is going on. Some of it very profound, but some of it also very useful as a practical instruction. So please carry on enjoying yourself. Have a nice lunch, and then we will see you back again at 3 o'clock this afternoon.